Welcome to another episode of Game Changers for Government Contractors. I'm your host, Michael LeJeune, and today we're going to talk about a topic I have never talked about on this podcast. We're going to be talking about SharePoint for the government contractor community. I've got Therman here with me to talk about this. So let me turn it over to you to tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Mike, what's going on? Yeah, I'll keep it brief. You know what I mean? So my name is Therman Trotman, and I'm a SharePoint guy. You know, I eat, sleep, and breathe SharePoint. Been doing it for a pretty long time now. Quick bio on me is I'm from the Bronx. I'm born and raised in the Bronx, and then after the Bronx, I went to the Army. Did 4 years there. You know, Benning. Where did I go? Gordon. Went to school at Gordon in 31 uniform. Then after that, I went to Bragg, and I was actually in the 82nd for like 3 weeks accidentally. And
Wow.
I ran my life away for 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? And after that, I went to the correct unit that I was supposed to go to. After that, I went to Korea. Like, I had a good time in just the 4 years that I did, that I was in the Army. After that, I came home and went to the Guard for a year. And then after 1 year in the Guard, that's when I started supporting the government as a contractor. It was not a plan. I didn't set out to be a contractor, but the Guard unit that I was at, they had like a table where they would put flyers and stuff like that. And on that table, there was a flyer to go to a job fair. I went to the job fair, got the job as a contractor, and that was 2004. So matter of fact, right now I've hit 20 years now supporting the government. So
Wow.
it's been
That's
a ride.
awesome. That's awesome. You know, I mean, I had a similar entrance into the government where I was in the Army. I was at Fort Hood for my entire career. Couldn't get out of there for nothing. And then was working with all these contractors and thought, oh, that's a career path I never thought about. And so just wound up going to work for one of the contractors. And that was 24 years ago.
Nice.
So just a little bit more than you. So
yeah.
I see you're a Buffalo fan. I'm a huge Josh Allen fan.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I love Josh Allen, man. I've been pulling for him the last several years. So he's got to go into Kansas City and beat Mahomes.
Yep.
It's got to happen at some point.
Yep.
You know, because I'm just dying to see them get to that next level. So
I can't wait. Wait, but it's been rough.
Yeah, for all those Kansas City fans, you know, we're coming for you. So,
man.
My partner Josh is based in St. Louis, and he'll probably never listen to this podcast, so I can say he's just a fair weather Kansas City fan. He doesn't even know they exist until they started winning.
Okay.
So, okay. He'll probably never listen to it, but if somebody else will tell him, "Oh, Josh, you're not a real KC fan."
Yeah.
but anyway, I'm from Louisiana, so I've always been a New Orleans fan, you know, a Drew Brees fan, and I'll say this, maybe this might upset you. Man, I was a Tom Brady fan for the longest time.
You were a Tom Brady fan?
Heck yeah, man.
Wait. Brady. So were you rooting for the Pats?
I was rooting for the Patriots. I was rooting for the Bucks, even when they were playing the Saints.
What's going on there? What are you doing?
Yeah, I just love, man, Tom Brady. Watching that man play was like watching the best of the best do.
I agree.
Yeah,
but
just like I feel so blessed as a sports guy growing up, having watched Michael Jordan play,
yes,
and Tom Brady play,
yes.
Like those are, it's just crazy. I wish we had had 20 years of Michael Jordan, but 20 years of Tom Brady. Like that's been,
but then also Tyson, being able to watch Tyson fights. I think the 90s were I'm very happy that I was you know, raised through the 90s to see all those sports players and big sporting events. I can't dismiss that. It's so beautiful.
Yeah,
you know
I could probably do a whole podcast on that. I mean, so the day Tyson lost his first fight to Douglas was my birthday.
Wow.
I was so ticked off.
Wow, that's crazy.
I was so mad it was on my birthday. But yeah, I mean, to watch some of these athletes, Carl Lewis, and those folks, like just some of the craziest athletes over the last 20 something years, but in the 90s it was so wild.
Yeah, I agree, man. It was good. It's good stuff. Loved it.
So let's talk SharePoint, because we could talk sports all day long. So I was telling you before we got started here, SharePoint was my nemesis back in the day because we were developing a collaborative solution for the government. we were in there and Microsoft was looking over our shoulder and like, hey, we're developing SharePoint and this thing. And so every time I turn around, there was a contract that somebody was trying to take from me. It was Microsoft and SharePoint related. And so that was why it was my nemesis. Otherwise, I didn't use it a whole lot. But there's so many people that use SharePoint. And I think you pointed out some people think of it as a 4-letter word. Because when it started out, it really was like you needed a developer to figure it out and do things. And now there's been a giant leap in the way they've got it set up. So I'd love to just talk about how it's evolved a little bit, but how government contractors are kind of leaving money on the table because they're ignoring SharePoint.
Yeah.
And
so I could definitely talk about that.
Yeah. So I guess the first question really is, why should the GovCon community care about SharePoint in your opinion?
Oh, okay. Well, I think there's multiple reasons that they care about it, but number one, if I'm speaking to a government contractor, I'm gonna have to say it's money. You know what I mean? It's you go out to win these contracts, and when you win these contracts, you're hoping to do a good job and re-up for your next year, your option years, all that other stuff. When you do that, there is a big gap that I've seen from multiple contractors. They leave SharePoint on the table because they just don't know about it. They don't know about the power that SharePoint has, and especially with it evolving now. So the connection with where SharePoint came from to where it is today, Microsoft made it an end user's tool. Like they took away the necessity to be like a developer in order to use it, where like someone had to reach out to me and say, hey, Therman, can you do X, Y, and Z? That has now gone away. It's gone away for a few years now, where just like Excel, just like PowerPoint, just like Word, where you just go to the tool, open it up, and start using it, you could literally do that with SharePoint now. You could just go to the tool and start using it. So the only gap is education. It's no longer access. You have the access. You just now need the education on how to use it. A very specific example for how a government contractor could be leaving money on the table, right? I always give this example where I'm like, if you staff your person at a agency, and if I had employees and I staffed my person at that same agency, and you know how it could be, like you could end up doing the same job but on two different ends of the hall. When your person gets asked to do something, for instance, create a roster for something, immediately their brain goes to Excel. They think, I'm going to open up a spreadsheet. I'm going to put some, names at the top of these columns, and then I'm going to send it out to everybody and tell them to populate this X, Y, and Z. The whole song and dance. It's a normal thing. If someone that I trained went to that same organization, there's staff there too, and they get told to make a roster, it's going to turn into more than just a roster. It's going to be, I can create the roster with a SharePoint list, cool, but also I'm going to have a page on a site somewhere that shows who's the POC for this roster. It's going to show what the expectations are. So maybe like a little blurb on the strategic goal of this. Then it's going to have a list of stakeholders, maybe a weekly sign up something, or you could see like a weekly place to see all the meetings that we're going to be having, stuff like that. It's a whole entire site, because that's another thing SharePoint allows you to do is build sites. That compared to this spreadsheet that's being thrown around and is getting convoluted and is having version after version, and people are bolding things and highlighting things and deleting columns. That whole process, as normal as it is, I think it needs to just die on the vine. You know what I'm saying? It's really, really old school thinking. It's just it's a thing that you do because you think that's all you have at your fingertips. Nobody knows that you can do all these cool things with SharePoint. So
well,
leave money on the table.
Yeah, to your point, I find that it's a little odd to me that we're still, this day and age, with how collaborative tools are, whether it's using a Google Doc or using something else, whether it's SharePoint or something else, we're still in this very static environment where people will create something and email it.
Yeah.
Versus collaborating online in a live setting.
Right.
Like why are we still doing so much work that is static like that with, to your point, the versions? And you've got Jenny and Jim over here both working on it independently. Neither one knows what the other one are doing. And now Mike has to combine the changes.
Exactly. Yes.
And it's like, so, and if there's 10 people on this thing, then the level of effort is crazy on just a simple roster
Right. And
and
that's not what you
opening.
got hired
Yeah,
for.
yeah, yeah. It's not what I'm hired for. And it's just the simple things, or even the room for error of, well, you sent me something, then somebody else sent me something, somebody else, and I update, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be smart, and I'm just going to highlight or um, copy the rows or
Yeah,
columns,
yeah.
but I didn't realize that you changed a phone number, and so I've just gone backwards in the process because I saw you updated the name, but I didn't realize you also changed the phone number. And
Exactly.
now I've screwed up the document. And it's not even what it should be. So I see that a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
and now you're spending time trying to fix things, and it's not just you; it's you and everybody else who's dealing with this spreadsheet. And imagine that one spreadsheet, and we're only talking about 10 people. We know that that's not normally the case. It's usually multiple spreadsheets and way more than 10 people across multiple days. It's a little ridiculous, but as much as as ridiculous as it is, to your question, you're like, why are we still doing this? The reason literally is just people. People usually don't. They're creatures of habit. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
it's like, if I'm doing this on a regular basis, I'm good. I don't need anything to change. Usually, you need a forced change, or you need somebody who's good at implementing change to
Right.
lead those folks down into the new way of doing things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for a lot of people, like AI has been one of those things
Hmm.
where, and we'll just stick on Chat GPT for a minute. The people have been given a new tool, but it's kind of like with Word or Excel or anything like that. They haven't been given enough training to know what the tool can do. So everybody just reverts to, well, it's there to create some language for me, whether that language is a couple of paragraphs or some text for a website
Hmm.
or a corporate overview or something like that. They don't realize everything the tool can do. And I was just talking with somebody the other day about this and how when organizations do training for AI,
Hmm.
they should have people on the team doing the training to give them examples of how they're using it in the organization. Because to me, that's the biggest gap in knowledge, is having a new tool and then using it, the user experience for years to gain the knowledge of all the places you can use it.
Right.
And so what you have in an organization typically, and I assume it's the same for SharePoint, is you've got a bunch of end users that are using it as a novice with maybe one or two features. They don't realize the power, so they're not going back to the tool. And then you've got some super users,
Hmm.
which make up a very small minority of your user base, who are like, this thing is the greatest thing in the world. It can literally do 90% of your, like, you have those people. And then you have the novice user that's like, well, it can't do anything but make a roster.
Right.
I could do that in Excel. So why go through the process of, because they just don't have the awareness of what the tool is capable of.
Yes.
And I think that to me is one of the biggest downfalls of anything that's new, is people don't get those use cases of doing. So how specifically, I mean, you gave one example there, but how specifically can the GovCon community use SharePoint? Give us some additional examples that will maybe pique somebody's interest and get them to go, oh,
Oh yeah. Okay.
why don't we use this?
Yeah. There's okay. So I'm gonna go. Okay. I use an acronym, right? There's an acronym that I like to use to make people remember um what SharePoint can do, and it's Charlie Mike Delta. So it's CMD. SharePoint can collect information, it can manage information, or it can display information. 99.99% of the things that you do inside of SharePoint is going to fall into one of those buckets. And here's what I mean by collect information. So that back to that roster. Maybe you need people to fill in the roster. The way you would quote collect that information, you'd normally send it out through email, tell people to fill it in, and then get it back. Or maybe you do hang it on SharePoint. You take the document, you put it on SharePoint, and you tell everybody to go to that document and put in the information. You're collecting information from your organization. If you use SharePoint lists, that's a feature, a massive feature inside of SharePoint. It's just one feature that helps you collect information way better. So, just for instance, if I'm collecting information from 30 people, once I hit send on that email, I have now made 30 copies of that document. So I'm already starting off on the wrong foot. If I use a SharePoint list, I send a link like we do in the real world. I'm going to send you a link to all 30 of those people. They click on that link, they go into a SharePoint list. Nobody's stepping on each other's toes. Nobody's deleting columns because you don't have the privilege to do that. Nobody's like bolding things and hiding things and dictating to me, the spreadsheet, the information manager, how things are going to go. You're not doing all of that. We're just using it like how we use things in the regular world. So that's collect information. Manage information is just the way, once you collected it, how you use it while it's in there. So I need to archive it, or I need to hide some columns and display certain things to the boss or whatever. Like I get to do all that stuff. When I say display, I mean put it on a website. So I'm just talking about websites. You can use SharePoint to create sites, and I'm just talking about displaying information on those sites. Now, a very specific example: government contractors that I know of from my experience, when they hire folks and they put them at the organization, these folks need a common access card, right? And I've seen this process where it's all junked up. Nobody has a documented way to do this thing. You can take a website, a simple page on a SharePoint site, and give the new person everything that they need. You can put locations to CAC offices. You can put the document that they need to download and fill out. I forgot what document it is, but it's the same document. You can put that document on there. You could put a library there so that they can upload this document, and the person who's managing it can have all of their documents there. You could put a blurb there that explains why we even need a CAC and how you're supposed to have a strong password when you go get it done and all this other stuff. You can take a page on a website and make it a one-stop shop just for that specific thing. And you can do that for multiple things throughout your organization. And usually contractors have the same thing. So I know you have to have a CAC. I know that you have it when you win your contract, you have to turn in reports. So you have to do your monthly status report, or you might have to do your weekly activity report, or you have to turn in IPR slides. You can put all of these things on a very nice SharePoint site and make it easy for people to find which document they need to update it, hit save, and walk away. And you have the information just sitting there all in one stop. I could go on all day, but
Yeah.
one quick thing that I wanted to mention: we were talking about sports, and SharePoint being a 4-letter word. So I'm gonna connect all these, right? The reason why I don't care about SharePoint being a 4-letter word is because as much as I love technology, I don't think it's about the technology. It's about people. So you have to know how to talk to people and engage with people and see what they need way before you even think about the technology. And that's what I am. So now, talking about sports, these are just tools we're talking about. I don't know how to swing a baseball. Not a baseball. I don't know how to. My hand-eye coordination is not to the level of somebody who's a professional baseball player that's been doing it for years and knows how to play baseball. It is just a tool. It's a bat, that's a tool, and the baseball is another tool. And I'm just now like, all right, well, how do I do this? You know what I'm saying? Can I hit the ball? Maybe. But me versus somebody who knows how to use those tools efficiently is a totally different story. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, me and them don't use the tools the same way. So me personally, I feel like I know how to use the tool SharePoint in a way that I don't see other developers using it, because I don't think about the tool itself. I think about the person. I need to know what your business is doing, what you're doing on a regular basis, what's annoying you. Like, what are you trying to fix? Way before I even mention, oh, SharePoint is the solution for you, because SharePoint might not even be. But my focus is on, who you are and what you do and what your business does.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need more people to focus more on the process and the people, and then define that and then pick the tool.
Yes, exactly.
That's really where, even when you look at AI, so many people are choosing the tool and then trying to figure out, well, how do we use it?
Exactly.
Like,
Yes, exactly.
well, why do you need it?
Right.
What is it you're trying to do today that you're trying to improve, and how can this now help it? And so, like, when people are asking me questions about using AI, because I've been doing a lot of sessions on AI, I'll tell them, because the question is usually, well, what can it do? I'm like, well, just ask it.
What do you need?
It's AI. So like, people say, can it do this? They're like, well, ask it. Like, you
Right.
get in there and literally just ask, can you fill in the blank?
Right.
You know, and you don't necessarily have to Google that. Go into AI and ask the question. Like, one of the things that I asked early on, somebody asked me, well, can AI transcribe photos? So I just went in, hey, can you transcribe photos? Yes. And I uploaded a photo and it transcribed it. Like, okay, what's your next question?
Right.
You know, let's keep asking the AI what it can do. Like, can you transcribe it and save it in an Excel or Word document? Yes, I can do that.
Right.
Just upload the data. And so a lot of times I don't think we're asking those questions. We're just trying to figure out, well, how do I work the tool into my everyday life?
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like, so I got a few things that I say. I got a couple of mantras, you know what I'm saying? One of them is people over technology, right? And then I always say that if you have like a really, really powerful tool like AI, that's powerful technology, with a bad team, I'm going to take the really good team with the, subpar technology any day over the
Yeah.
team who is not, they don't work well together, but they have this really powerful tool at their fingertips. The people who are going to win with AI, they already have their processes down. They already work well together
Yep.
as a team. They're already doing what they need to do. All AI is going to do, like any other tool would do, will supercharge what you're already doing. It's not going to
Yeah.
do some new thing that you're not doing. If you're
Yeah.
not transcribing pictures, then why do you care about the fact that AI can transcribe pictures? You don't care about that. But if
Right.
you are pulling reports from external organizations who send you bad data all of the time, and y'all have your process down of how you transcribe that data and make it better. Now you tell AI, hey, listen, we got this report. It comes from multiple organizations, but every time we get it, the data looks like this. We want to just have a quick process that we put this data together all the time. We actually have it documented. Here's how we do it. Can you do this for us? There you
Yeah.
go. Now you
Yeah.
get to spend more time on doing your actual job instead of worrying about this jacked up data that these multiple organizations then sent you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't got to
Yeah.
worry about that.
Yeah. No, exactly. When I think about the exact same thing, I look at end users who they don't even know what questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
They're just trying to force the tool is the first thing. But the second thing is when they are using the tool, they just don't have enough power users in their network, if you will, to
People.
really be able to learn how to leverage it. And so again, we wind up in a situation where you have really basic use of a tool. And a lot of times I feel like that's where the tool kind of dies, because they're like, why I'm using this extra process to do this thing when it was good enough the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And they just don't get it. Because one of my comments that I make all the time is garbage in, garbage out.
I agree. Yep.
You know, if you like, kind of like to your point there about those users, if you're not very good, it's going to make you better, but it's not going to make you the best. And you may not, you're not going to know what to do with it, how to do it.
Right.
You're not going to even know what to do with the output, because when it's AI, I never leave the output as it is. I'm always tweaking the output
Absolutely. Yep.
because it's just helping me get somewhere faster, but it's still what's in my brain that's going to tweak it. So I feel like it's even better.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not
Definitely.
be, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I feel better about it when I do that way. So, one of the questions that we had brought up, and I know you've talked a little bit about this, but talk to me about, because this is going to be the main comparison for a lot of people, the differences between Excel and SharePoint.
Oh, um, dang. Okay, so I want to pick the best ones, but I tell you what. Here's an example, right? So back to that example of where we send this spreadsheet out and people start doing things to the spreadsheet that you did not ask them to do. They're deleting columns, they're hiding columns, they're filtering so that they can see only their stuff. When you deal with SharePoint, people still get to do that. They get to filter and see just the stuff that they care about, except it doesn't mess with anybody else who's using the tool. That's
Mm,
it. You know what I'm saying? So if you imagine like LinkedIn, we're both active on LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is a tool where when I go in and you go in, we roughly see the same things. We have a profile page, we have things that we could put on our profile page. We can see other people posting. We can see other people commenting. But the difference between your LinkedIn sign-in and my LinkedIn sign-in is that we get to customize things, and it doesn't bother what you're doing. So if I customize my page and say I don't want to have creator mode on, and I don't want to have these things highlighted at the top of my page, I can do that. And you can do the opposite and say, well, I do want creator mode on, and I want to put these highlights at the top of my page. You can do that, and it does not mess with me. I can do my thing, and it doesn't mess with you, even though we're using the same tool. That is the way an application actually works. Excel is not some application for you to be doing that. Because if me and you tried that with Excel, the next time I go into that spreadsheet, I have to undo the things that you've done in order for me to even get started. I have to unhide
Right.
your columns. I have to undo the filters so I can see my stuff. And now we're working on this spreadsheet in an incorrect way. And it sounds like I don't like spreadsheets, but I love spreadsheets. They're powerful tools, but not the way that people use them. It's like I always say, they're using a fork to eat cereal. Can you do it? Yeah, of course. You can do that. But is that better than the spoon? No.
Yeah, it's painful.
Yeah, it's not going to be a good idea. You know what I'm saying? So that's just one thing, is that you get rid of that type of stuff. And then two, the way you enter information into a spreadsheet is like into a spreadsheet. But on SharePoint, you get a form. So the example I always like to give is like Netflix, right? If Netflix needed your information, your name, your email address, that type of stuff, you're going to go to netflix.com, click sign up somewhere, and you're going to see a form. And then you type your information into the form. Netflix is not going to send you a spreadsheet and say, hey, put in your name and your email address and send this back to us, and we'll, update our database. That's not a thing. So I could see if at one point you still did these things if you didn't have access to a tool that allowed you to create forms and stuff like that. But it's not like that anymore. You now have access to do that. So you get to use forms. You get to eliminate that process of people, stepping on your toes by changing things and filtering things and bolding things. You also get this powerful thing that I like called views, right? So all a view is just a different way of viewing your data. So if I put a bunch of data inside of a spreadsheet and then I want to see it like a Kanban board, I can do that. If we're tracking things by statuses, let's just say in progress, complete and not started or whatever. And I go to this data set and I say, okay, I want to make my own view where I see it in a Kanban style, and I only want to deal with items that are in progress. I don't want to deal with the complete or the with not started or whatever. And I want to see it in a Kanban board. I can do that with the flip of a switch, and you can use the same SharePoint list and still see it as a list. We're not bumping into each other. We could use it like that. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of things. There's out of the box automation. So I can say every time somebody goes and puts a new item on the roster, send me an email automatically. I can do that. I can do that with SharePoint. The difference again with using SharePoint, which is like a full blown application to do those things that I mentioned, Charlie, Mike, Delta, CMD. All a spreadsheet is, in my opinion, is where you export your data. That's where your data should land. A spreadsheet should be the last place that your data is, and that's it. Not where you enter information into a spreadsheet. I don't put information into spreadsheets. I put them in a list, and then if I need them in a spreadsheet, I'll do an export. I could go on all day. I'll there's a bunch more. But I'll just stop there.
I think the examples are really good for people to hear, because people struggle with, well, how do I use this thing? Where do I implement it? And the understanding of, like I said, collecting, managing, displaying information, everything we do is about those things these days.
Yes.
Literally, our world revolves around collecting, managing, and displaying information in different places.
Yep.
Regardless of what you do, regardless of what your business is, regardless in the government, it's building dashboards that display information.
Yeah.
It's collecting it from somewhere and displaying it somewhere.
Yes.
Whether it's on a public facing website or an internal network, there's a constant need to collect, manage, and display.
Mike, I got another example. Let's say that you are a government contractor and you staff an executive admin at the organization. This executive admin, let's just say, sits and supports someone high up. You know what I mean? A CG, somebody, whatever. This person comes to your executive admin and says, listen, there's too many people putting meetings on my calendar. I need a stopgap. I need you to do something before they get to my calendar. No problem. I will create a form and make people fill that out before I approve them to be on your calendar. This person goes to a Word document or a spreadsheet. They will create a Word document and spend a whole bunch of time creating a quote form in a Word document. And then now they have to, when someone comes in and says, "Hey, I need to chat with the boss," they're gonna send this to them through a email and say, "Hey, can you fill this out?" And then send it back to me, and then I'll look it over and get it on the calendar. We can eliminate and streamline that entire process with SharePoint, where they go to a site, they read, "Oh, okay, this is what I need in order to speak to the big boss." They hit a button that says, new request. A form comes up. Then they enter the information into a form. They hit submit. The executive admin automatically gets an email and says, "Oh, okay. Let me. This looks good. Fine." Hit the link in the email. Go to the item, hit approve, and now we can send it to a calendar. These are the tools that you have available in your government organization that your government organization doesn't even know about. So if you come in with this as a contractor and you say, listen, did you know you can do X, Y, and Z and you don't have to spend extra money to do it? You're already paying for it. And that thing that the government complains about, which is like we're never caught up with industry. These tools, not just SharePoint, but the tools in the Microsoft 365 suite allows them to do things that industry isn't even doing because they don't know that Microsoft put these things inside of the suite. I don't like to be a sensationalist or be over the top, but I'm telling you, it's revolutionary the way these tools are at their fingertips. People are paying for them and don't even know that they could do all of these things. It's very,
Yeah.
very powerful.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, the way you describe it. And I think, again, I think when you look at the user base in general, there's so many novice users
Mm-hmm.
that appear to be the power users. And like, well, it's not good for this, it's not good for that, and whatever. Where
Yeah.
we just need more power users in place that can say, well, here's how we can automate this process. Here's how we can streamline this process. Here's how this is just not a good way to do business. And I think a lot of it is looking at what are our frustrations? Like, what are the frustrations that we currently have in business, and are there solutions that'll fix them? The answer is usually yes.
Yep.
There's usually a solution.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other challenge for people is when they start implementing it and it's working, but then it breaks and they don't know how to fix it, or they don't know who to call, or they don't even know if it's broken, because not everybody is using it. Because in general, people don't need a lot of fancy stuff to do their work.
No, they do not.
They just need it to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the challenge for a lot of people. And so I think we can really overcomplicate it with technology.
Yes.
But it's trying to do the most with the least, basically. Like, how can we accomplish the most with the least amount of effort, the least amount of systems? Least, like that's for me. People are always like, well, why don't you use this tool for managing tasks and this tool for managing this? Because I can manage it in Outlook.
Yeah.
And why do I need a tool a second tool to log into when I could just put it on my calendar?
Right.
And that works for me.
Right.
And I'm not dropping any balls.
Right.
Why do you want me now to complicate my life with something? And and I think that's probably one of the things that I would like to see with people using any new tool is how to consolidate more things into one place versus now I'm using 19 tools.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the consolidation is one thing, and this can consolidate a lot of stuff. So, so wrap me up with this. Where's the best place to start with implementing SharePoint?
So there's multiple entry points, but one of my favorite entry points is tell me about your spreadsheet. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of spreadsheet are you using right now? When was the last time you touched a spreadsheet? What does that look like? And then we could get to going from there. Because once I see your spreadsheet, if you're knocking it out of the park and it's fine and you're good to go, I'm not going to try to convince you to use SharePoint. But highly likely, you're gonna need a better solution than what you're doing if you're using a spreadsheet to literally put your data into. So one good place to start is by creating a SharePoint list, which is kind of like a spreadsheet killer in my opinion. You know what I mean? If you are, let's go back to this roster. If you're tracking your roster inside of a spreadsheet and it's just you, no one else needs to see the spreadsheet. And I mean no one. That's one of the main use cases for you not to even change. If you're happy, you know what I mean, and you're knocking it out of the park, do your thing. If you do not have to collaborate on this spreadsheet with anybody else. But I know highly likely, especially if you are literally working, you do have to collaborate with somebody. So let's see what that looks like. But really the main entry are two places. It's going to be, what does your spreadsheet look like? Or where are all of your things? Because if you have all of your things spread out all over the place, I will tell you right now to get a site, a SharePoint site. Create a SharePoint site. Because if you create a SharePoint site, you could put any and everything. I don't care what it is. Any and everything can go on that SharePoint site. So now you have one place to go and see all of your stuff. And I put my what is it? My foot where my mouth is? What is it? I don't know. But I take my own advice. So my company, anything I need to go get, it's sitting on my SharePoint site. The passwords to the things I have to log into, all of my logos and brand assets, all of my business documents, contracts that I sign securely in one area on my SharePoint site. Projects that I'm managing, I put the information there. Like all of my stuff sits on the site, even if it's, let's say, QuickBooks. Let me give a quick example. If it's QuickBooks, if your company has QuickBooks, I'm not going to tell you to leave QuickBooks and then move to SharePoint. I'm going to tell you that if you hire someone new and you need to get them set up on QuickBooks, this is what you do. On your SharePoint site where everything else is there, you have a button that says something like QuickBooks or, finances, whatever. I don't know. You click that button on the SharePoint site. Now you go to a page on the SharePoint site that explains how you use QuickBooks here at this organization. We log in here. We every 2 weeks we put our information in here because I think QuickBooks could do timesheets too. When it's time to create an invoice, we follow these steps. You got some screenshots on the page. If you want to, you could put a video on the page as well. You could do all of that, and then at the bottom of that page, it can have a button that says, all right, go log into QuickBooks. And there you go. That is the way we should be working. And I'm not talking like pie in the sky. Just for your little 5-man team or your 10-man team or, whatever. You can use SharePoint to revolutionize the way that you do business because it's, I'm willing to bet that you're not currently putting everything in one place. So all rounded up, your 2 entry points, a SharePoint site to put everything together, or a SharePoint list to, move off of a spreadsheet.
Yeah, no, that's really good because I think a lot of people in organizations, like especially government contractors, they have their proposals in one folder somewhere. Maybe they're using Dropbox. They have something else that they're using for managing invoices and all these different systems and things. And there really isn't a centralized place to go and learn how to do stuff and then execute on that knowledge.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of people definitely struggle, is there's just so many systems that it just makes it difficult for them to function in any way, shape, or form. So no, this has all been really good. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about SharePoint and just kind of bringing it to the surface. Because I think we talked about a lot of stuff, but I really do think we barely scratched the surface on not only what it does, but how people can use it. I highly recommend people go and follow you on LinkedIn or connect with you and see what you're talking about, because you're always talking about different things about SharePoint on LinkedIn. And I think it's really good to just learn this stuff, because it really, understanding how to run a smarter organization is the difference between a company staying at $1 million and growing to 20.
Yeah,
they've got to learn how to run a smarter, better organization. And the more people you have, the more important that is on how to train them, how to keep things in a centralized location, how to have that data accessible, how to manipulate it. I mean, that's the big thing for a lot of people, is like, how do we manipulate this data and show it in different ways, have different dashboards or whatever it is we need. There's a lot of use cases there. So, but thank you for coming on and kind of giving the intro to why people should be using or why GovCon should be using SharePoint. I don't know if you have a final thought around it, but I'll give you the floor for the final thought around this.
Yeah, I do. So real quick, because I thought about this. I think I might make a post about this on LinkedIn and probably make a podcast. But we need less of me and more of subject matter experts with tools in their hands. So in other words, instead of me, SharePoint, I know about SharePoint, but I would rather, and I've told this to organizations, you are the subject matter expert. You are more dangerous than me with this technology.
Yeah.
Like YouTube. A whole bunch of people who are not, quote, tech people now know how to use YouTube to spread their expertise. YouTube is a technology that you've had to learn over time. And as it gets updated, you have to stay on top of the updates. You have to know how to use the tool. You are the subject matter expert. You now have YouTube in your hand. You now become dangerous. So you got government contractors. You're the subject matter expert. You're the people who are supporting the government. If you learn what SharePoint can do for you, you now become extremely dangerous. So that's it. And I do have a link, SharePointFreebie.com. You can go there to learn how to build your first list. So
awesome.
I think
that's cool.
That's where we can start.
No, that's great. Thank you for all of that. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you again about SharePoint.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.